Reverend Dom Abbots. Reverend Doms of the monastic community, distinguished alumni, especially my own dear classmates from 1962, revered staff and teachers of this Abbey School, and especially you current students of St. Anselm's, the most revered of all. It is an extraordinary honor to speak to you today. I was looking for the right word, and I think I might almost say that it was divine. And an honor entirely undeserved. Now, I'm not trying to gain your goodwill by deprecating myself. Of course, you all know all about that ploy, captatio benevolentiae, and I could never fool you by taking refuge in it. No, it's absolutely true, and I have proof from my reading over the last few weeks. You see, we classmates of 1962 have been writing short biographies about our last 50 years to include in a booklet, and using our own class listserv, we've been sharing these with each other in advance. The lives of my classmates have led are truly remarkable. Astonishing adventures of distinguished accomplishment in many fields, including some daring and dazzling career changes. Meanwhile, I have done nothing whatever, except keep going to school. On and on and on. I vividly remember my 25th birthday, celebrated 43 years and a few weeks ago today, when I was still a graduate student. My St. Anselm's classmates, and indeed some of my Harvard students, had by then done amazing work. But here I was, 25 years old, having already spent a quarter of a century accomplishing absolutely nothing. That's quite honestly how I felt. Finally, though, I did finish my doctoral dissertation, and I just barely got a teaching job in a quite obscure corner of the upper Midwest, at the intersection of 3 or 4 cornfields. And I've stayed there in Northfield, Minnesota, at Carleton College ever since. I worked very hard to help the Carls, that's what we call ourselves there, to keep their ablatives and subjunctives straight. And for the most ambitious Greek and Latin students, guiding them through intricate grammatical processes. How, for example, are we to correctly express conditional sentences within indirect discourse? But let's be honest, my dear friends, in this world we live in, who cares? Meanwhile, my classmates have been tearing up the tracks in the military, in business, real estate, government, law, finance, communications, health, IT, really making a difference for the citizens of our country and of the world in their daily lives. Next to them, I feel really inadequate. However, in the last 50 years, I've gained quite a lot of experience talking. And that's what you've asked me to do today. My subject is inspired by an event last Saturday at Carleton College, where we held a big party on account of my upcoming retirement. The date was April 21st, the traditional birthday of the city of Rome, and also the feast of St. Anselm. What a remarkable coincidence. Rome and St. Anselm on the same day. My plan is to follow the advice of Morgan O'Brien from our class of '62, who used to tell us when we were students here that the way to deal with an exam essay question was really quite simple. No matter how difficult the question, you just start by making an absolutely outrageous and apparently indefensible assertion. Then you'll have plenty to work with as you go through the next 45 minutes trying to justify it. Morgan has not been unsuccessful in life. Did you like that litotes? And I take his advice seriously. So here goes. I'm going to assert that St. Anselm was nothing other than the ultimate citizen of Rome. What? I hope you are asking. Born in 1033 or thereabouts, 5.5 centuries after the last Roman emperor in the West, Romulus Augustulus was deposed in 476 by some smelly barbarian chieftain, how can you possibly call Anselm a Roman? And you do remember, don't you, that he was a Catholic, not a pagan, and a saint at that? Professor Bryce, what could you be thinking? Well, okay. I grant you, I'm using the word citizen in a spiritual sense. We must admit that by 1033, there was no longer a Roman Empire in the West to be a citizen of. But Roman culture was still very much alive. Aosta, where Anselm was born, in the northwest corner of Italy, was, to give it its Roman name, Augusta. Aosta from Augusta. Augusta Praetoria Salassorum, conquered in 25 BC when young Octavius Caesar was already in control of Rome, in a campaign led by none other than the most famous of Roman scholars, Marcus Terentius Varro, who made a big career change from generalship to writing encyclopedias. Aosta was provided with magnificent Roman walls and towers that survive to this day. By 1033, Aosta belonged to Count Humbert I of the House of Savoy, which took it over in the collapse of the Burgundian kingdom of Arles in southern France. Anselm's family were landowners of great wealth and prominence. His father, Gundulf of Candia, connected to the recently collapsed royal house of Burgundy, and his mother, Ermenberga of Geneva, related to the House of Savoy, which took over. The houses of Burgundy and Savoy controlled places which had been thoroughly Romanized well before Augustus, and their ruling families were descended from the Roman senatorial aristocrats and landowners of the late empire. So on both sides of his family, baby Anselm was descended from very serious Roman aristocrats. And in my view, he proceeded to behave just like one. Now, these later Roman senatorial families had been Christians since the 7th century or even before. By the time he was the age of you 6th graders, Anselm was amazingly ambitious, and he became determined to locate and then visit the kingdom of God. It must be, he thought, on a mountaintop. And he used to pass through those Roman walls of Aosta and climb the foothills of the Alps nearby, looking for it. At age 15, he determined to become a monk, but was thwarted by his father and lapsed into a psychosomatic illness. To tell the truth, Anselm's dad was a bit of a wild man, and quite unreligious at that stage. Anselm himself took after his mother, but in his late teens, she died. Anselm lost his rudder in life and became a bit of a wild man too, for a while. He was rich and independent enough to pursue whatever worldly pleasures he wanted. It looks as if he and his dad became rivals at a secular lifestyle and could hardly live with one another. Anselm was energetic, determined, had plenty of cash. He decided to leave Dad and Italy behind. Bored with too much high life, he had regained his desire to become a monk, and he fled over the Alps to Burgundy in France, taking a faithful servant with him and plenty of cash. Moving from there into Normandy, he became a novice in 1060 at the age of 27 at the Abbey of Bec. The rule of Saint Benedict, itself deeply rooted in Roman political traditions, began to sink into his soul. He was enormously successful at Bec and became prior only 3 years later in 1063 at the age of 30, when Abbot Lanfranc moved to a more prestigious abbacy at Caen. By 1079, at age 46, Anselm was abbot of Bec, where he wrote his first philosophical works, the Monologion and Proslogion, which contain one of his greatest achievements, a revolutionary and unique method of philosophically proving the existence of God, known today as the ontological argument, and carefully studied here by you 9th graders, if I am not misinformed. His installation as abbot at Bec had to be rushed a bit. so as to occur while the archbishopric of Rouen was vacant. This way, Anselm would not owe anything to any archbishop of Rouen. Wouldn't it be fun right now to explore that long history of Benedictines struggling to keep their independence from bishops? But that would take us aside, I think. Anselm thought it most important to keep the Abbey of Bec as independent as possible, under secure control of its many lands and possessions, which extended into England. Another threat to Bec's independence came from Robert of Beaumont, 1st Earl of Leicester in England, against whom Anselm maneuvered with success. Meanwhile, in England, Abbot Lanfranc, first of Bec and then of Caen, had made another splendid career move and was now Archbishop of Canterbury. Anselm, when visiting England to check out his abbey's possessions there, networked quite skillfully and soon became everyone's choice as Lanfranc's successor to the See of Canterbury. But when Archbishop Lanfranc died in 1089, the evil King of England, William II, not only refused to appoint a new archbishop, but he also seized the possessions and the investment income of the See and Abbey at Canterbury. But then, one of the king's enemies, Hugh of Avranches, the 1st Earl of Chester, invited Anselm to come over and join in some high-level intrigue against the king. The story of the next 4 years is awfully complicated. Let's just skip to 1093, when King William fell seriously ill and became convinced that God was punishing him for his nasty behavior towards the church. He finally gave in and appointed Anselm Archbishop of Canterbury. But now, suddenly, Anselm was reluctant. Historians have disagreed about whether this was another clever move in his career climb, or whether he really just wanted to go back to Bec in Normandy and write philosophy. You can probably guess which side of this debate I'm on. Popular opinion was intense for Anselm, and King William by now wanted to appoint him very badly. But Anselm delayed and delayed, holding out for certain conditions from the king, regarding keeping hands off church lands, deferring to the archbishop in spiritual matters, supporting Pope Urban II in his current battle with the anti-pope Clement III. They tussled back and forth, the monk and the king, until finally Anselm won some of the concessions and enough popular support to be consecrated Archbishop of Canterbury on December 4th, 1093, at the age of 60. Anselm's episcopate was not a quiet one. Further struggles with kings of England, William II and then Henry I, over funds, political support in time of disputed succession to the English throne, and particularly the issue of royal control over the appointment of abbots, bishops, and archbishops. The famous lay investiture controversy, which my classmates and I studied assiduously with the late Don John Farrelly, may he rest in peace. I trust Abbey boys are still studying that, right? Anselm continued to garner public support and to shame kings by enduring 2 well-publicized exiles, so as to maneuver the kings to supporting the church by clever alternations of public defiance and much-needed support behind the scenes. By 1107, the lay investiture controversy was settled by the Concordat of London, in which King Henry essentially gave in to St. Anselm on all the most important points. Anselm remained Archbishop in Canterbury until April 21st of 1109, when he died at age 77.